and we're going to have a feature on air pollution today on Channel 5 News. And now we're going to talk to the local environmentalist, Lee.
Hello, my name is Lee, and I'm an environmentalist, and today I'm here to talk to you about some of our current environmental issues. Most of these environmental problems are caused by pollutants. What are pollutants, you may ask? Pollutants can come from all different kinds of sources, such as mobile sources like planes, trains, cars, etc., or stationary sources such as power plants, oil refineries, and factories that produce harmful chemicals. Area sources such as agricultural areas, cities, or wood-burning fireplaces, like even in your own home, you can actually be producing pollutants there. Or natural sources such as wind-blown dust, wildfires, and volcanoes. Pollutants are bad for the environment, or so that's what everybody keeps telling us. But how can we be sure that these pollutants are actually causing harmful damage to our bodies? Well, in one study in 2008 by the United Nations Environmental Program, they warned 340,000 people in China that in India alone that they die annually from cardiovascular and respiratory illnesses due to pollutants. These deaths, once they did autopsies, they traced the pollutants back to human-induced emissions of combustible particles in these atmospheric brown clouds, which are most likely to occur in places like China because they're so industrialized and there are factories pretty much around every corner. According to a new analysis published in Lancet, more than 3.2 million people suffered from premature deaths from pollution alone in 2010. That's up to 800,000 more from 2000. 65% of these deaths occurred in Asia, where the air is choked by diesel soot from cars and trucks and factories, from power plants, and the dust from endless urban construction. In eastern China, 1.2 million people died, as well as 712,000 in South Asia, including India. For the first time ever, air pollution is one of the top 10% killers worldwide. So, how can this air pollution be so damaging to our bodies? It's the very finest soot that comes out of all these things that I just mentioned, like factories, the chemicals, and it's so small that it lodges deep in the lungs, and from there it enters the bloodstream, which contributes to most of the public health toll on air pollution, including mortality. Diesel soot, which is also a carcinogen, is a major problem because it is concentrated in cities along transportation corridors, impacting densely populated areas. For places like China, obviously that's a very densely populated nation, so that's why more people suffer there because there's so many people and they all rely on public transportation. It is thought to contribute to half of the premature deaths from air pollution in urban centers. For example, 1 in 6 people in the US live near a diesel pollution hotspot like a rail yard, port terminal, or a freeway. One of the main sources of pollution are VOCs, which are actually commonly found in households. Things such as air fresheners, hairsprays, paint, fireplaces, solvents, varnishes, upholstery. They all have traces of VOCs in them, so those are things that we commonly use, usually on a day-to-day basis, so that's why we're exposed to them so much, so it's dangerous. Another source from pollution is tropospheric ozone, or better known as ground-level ozone, and that's more dangerous to children because they're playing outside more. So in places like a city, urban smog is a huge source of pollution there because there are so many factories that are releasing harmful chemicals and emissions, and actually the hotter it is outside, the more sunlight the pollutants absorb, which is more harmful to our bodies because when we breathe it in, it can cause long-term diseases such as bronchitis or asthma. And the third and final pollution source is particulate matter, which we will hear about more later from Margaret, the other environmental specialist. Some technologies have already been invented in order to help pollution become more clean. We can't necessarily eliminate all of the pollution unless we can figure out more cost-effective ways to do so, and even then there's still going to be some chemicals that are released into the air. So currently we've only found ways to kind of clean out the pollution that emerges. For example, one man he patented a process which can help filter out some of the harmful chemicals of cigarette smoke. And he plans to use that and to mass produce it to companies around the world to help clean out the pollution that they're causing and to help clean out some of the emissions and chemicals from the factories. However, these are very good ideas, but it would be a lot of money in our country that would be used towards things like that. Using this process worldwide or on the grand scheme will be hard to implement, and it would also take a very long time. So the government is not really making too much of an effort to get it started because they know that it will virtually be impossible. Our area, Hillsborough, New Jersey, actually has pretty good air quality, and this is because we are a suburban city. Mostly cities such as New York City or even smaller cities tend to have more factories or larger companies that produce more chemicals and harmful emissions to our air. Also, we do have a lot of cars which can produce some harmful emissions to the population in Hillsborough. However, it's on a much smaller scale than it would be if we were to be living in a big city. Pollutants don't really have an effect on us here because by the time that the pollutants from the bigger cities get over, they're not in high concentration. Now we're going to talk to another local environmentalist, Margaret.
Hi, I'm Margaret, the other local environmentalist, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about air pollution. So the effects of air pollution can be seen on both humans and the environment. Particulate matter, the other one that Lee told you how to talk about, is particles that are released into the air, and they're a little small, and they're the most common for humans, and that's what affects us the most. It can cause asthma, shortness of breath, and emphysema. Ground level ozone can lead to a sore throat, coughing, and lung infection. They both can also lead to headaches and nausea. There's also acid rain, which can erode statues and buildings, as well as kill plant and aquatic life. So that's why you'll see the reduction in the populations there. Some barriers for stopping pollution is the cost, the efficiency, and the techniques we're using. Some politicians still deny that the effects of air pollution, and people are not necessarily stopping the use of harmful products like VOCs, and the replacement for VOCs is now hurting the environment as well. Some ways to lessen pollution are battery-powered cars that reduce your ecological footprint because you're not producing those emissions. There are also new advanced catalytic converters that reduce the amount of particulate matter that's released into the air by about 50% because they're more efficient. You can also use energy-efficient products like energy-efficient light bulbs, and those are easier for like regular people to find in their local stores. There are also these new biofilters and heat exchangers, and they reduce the amount of ammonia that is released into the air from farms. So money and productivity are connected to the environmental pollution that we are experiencing today. Factories and other businesses produce emissions that are released into the air, and it pollutes it. But they're more concerned about the money they're making from these products. So it's more important than the condition of the air that we're breathing and living in than the future of our world. In addition, the pollution is costing countries lots of money in healthcare and labor costs, and for China it was about 112 billion in 2005. The productivity is also decreasing when the air pollution is too unsafe, so too concentrated for people to do work because they can't be outside in it. Now I'll talk a little bit more about the Clean Air Act of 1970. President Nixon signed it in 1970, and its job is to regulate air emissions from stationary and mobile sources for the public welfare and to regulate the air pollutants in general. It was part of his program. There are pollutant standards that businesses are set to reach. They have to reach these, and they're regulated by the government. So, for example, some of the standards are, like, they set standards for major emission sources that have emitted or have the potential to emit about 10 tons of pollutants in the air per year, which is a lot. Hi, thanks for watching our segment on air pollution.
See you next time on Channel 5 News.